Welcome back to JW World News. And if this is your first time on the channel, please press subscribe and join our channel. We try to keep you up to date on all the JW World News, at least the rest of the story. Now today we are covering the Pennsylvania grand jury news update, and this is where the grand jury's probe is investigating, I think, 14 Jehovah's Witnesses. And the first one here in this article pled guilty. So we're going to cover that. But if this is new to you and you want to hear a little bit more, or you want to hear the beginning, I have a 1-minute brief that kind of gives you a newscast on what's happening. And we'll just put that on right now.
5 men are charged with sexually abusing children across Pennsylvania. The state attorney general, Michelle Henry, says the victims and the alleged predators were all members of Jehovah's Witness congregations.
These cases were presented to an investigative grand jury, and the grand jurors heard the evidence, they heard testimony, they considered and weighed it, and they made a recommendation to charge all 5 defendants.
The suspects live in Philadelphia, Delaware, Butler, Berks counties, and in Panama City, Florida. The AG's office says the victims range from 4 to 16 years old. The Jehovah's Witnesses tell NBC 10 in a statement that they cannot comment on the grand jury investigation, but that the idea that this happened sickens them. The statement says in part, quote, child sexual abuse in particular is a twisted act of evil. That is why for decades, Jehovah's Witnesses have gone to great lengths to educate and warn parents through our publications, meetings, and website about how to protect their children in a variety of circumstances, end quote.
Okay, so that gives us a little bit on that, a little bit of an update. Now I'm just going to switch off on this and
as the exclusive Spanish language
there we go.
Of all FIFA properties and the exclusive Spanish home of the U.S. national teams.
These news feeds seem to take over.
Most complete and ambitious coverage of the 2023 FIFA.
Okay, so back to the news article. So if you haven't been following, that kind of gives you a little bit of an update. Michelle Henry, who you've seen on there, is the district attorney in charge of this. You can follow Michelle Henry on Twitter. Let me see here. I think we have her on YouTube. And so here we have her on YouTube. And you can follow her on YouTube. She has 828 subscribers now, and there's 275 videos. She broadcasts her videos here as they come out. So the advantage of being right on YouTube, if you're a YouTuber, get right on with the Attorney General. And this way you're going to get her broadcast the same time that the news agencies get it. So it's worth subscribing to for that reason if you're following this case as an ex-Jehovah's Witness or as a Jehovah's Witness. Now, the other thing this does to Michelle Henry, she has 828 subscribers. If we can boost her up to 1,000, maybe put a comment in there and say, great work for uncovering all of this stuff. Maybe even say, I'm an ex-JW, thank you for all your work. Now, if you want to talk to them, of course, you don't do it over comments. You email them or follow another course. It's private if you want to talk to them about something serious. But this is an interesting way of getting involved if you're online, and you can bump this all up and really give Michelle Henry a thumbs up for the hard work that she's doing. Now, if you want to know what this guy looks like that we're going to talk about today, here's what he looks like. That's what this guy looks like. This is the picture that they're showing from the Attorney General's office. They certainly picked the right picture, I think. So we're going to go and take a look at this article here and see what it has to say. So the article, the first of 14 men accused of sexually assaulting children while they were members of Jehovah's Witness congregation in Pennsylvania, pleaded guilty. The first of the 14, right? Pleaded guilty to 2 counts of rape on Tuesday. So again, we're going to look at this guy. This is him. That's what he looks like. There, that's the guy. And so this is the first. And we're going to get a story on him. Here's what happened. Jesse Hill is his name, formerly of Berks County, Pennsylvania, and currently a Georgia resident, sexually assaulted and exploited 2 children he met through the Jehovah's Witness community in the 1990s. Sentencing for the 52-year-old man was deferred so that he can undergo an evaluation by the Sexual Offenders Assessment Board, which will help determine whether or not he meets the criteria for a sexually violent predator. Now, through this guilty plea, the defendant admitted that he used his good standing with his religious community to access potential victims, gain their trust, and then sexually assault them. And Attorney General Michelle Henry said, "These crimes are abhorrent, and we are wholeheartedly committed to holding those accountable who hurt children. To any victims who have not yet disclosed their stories to law enforcement, I want you to know that if you speak up, our office will listen." So there you go. There's Michelle Henry. She wants you to speak up. So if you haven't yet spoken up, now's the time to do so. Now, it goes on to say, investigators determined Hill used in his milling business to attract young boys from his Jehovah's Witness congregation to his home for parties. And he then promised the boys alcohol, marijuana, and pornography, and he relied on his family's trusted name within the religious community to gain the boys' trust. And he then exposed himself to the children, groping them and forced them to perform sexual acts. Now, Hill's arrest was part of an ongoing probe from a Pennsylvania grand jury investigating child sexual abuse within the Jehovah's Witness community. And Hill is one of 14 men accused of sexually assaulting children while they were members of the Jehovah's Witness congregation across Pennsylvania. Now, Henry said that while the misconduct dates back years or even decades, the trauma endures for these victims. And that's really what's important is these victims. You know, it's not about the Watchtower's name. It's not about who did this or who did that. It's about these victims. And good on Michelle Henry for taking this stand. So Henry did not address the church's handling of complaints, but said the investigation would continue. So I've been noticing this on all of the articles. So they're waiting. They're not addressing the organization yet, but they're accumulating all the evidence, getting all the evidence out in front of the grand jury, and then we'll see what happens. So if you want to know the rest of the story, press subscribe, like, and share. Follow along on our channel, and we will keep you up to date. Now, the Office of the Attorney General also set up a hotline at 888-538-8541. It's right there if you're a victim, for any victims of sexual assault. So it's right here. I'll just stay on here for a bit. I'll leave that highlighted. And if you want to grab your pen and your paper, and you're watching this program, write this down and make a phone call. And this is for abuse from members of Jehovah's Witness congregations in Pennsylvania, and to provide information to the investigators. So there's the number, folks. Pass that on to ones that were victimized. Now, the response from the current and the former Jehovah's Witnesses, this is interesting, and we covered this on another article, but the Jehovah's Witnesses United States branch, Wallkill, New York, released the following statement on the investigation. And here's what they're saying. We are not permitted by law to comment on specific matters arising out of the grand jury investigation. That having been said, the news of someone being sexually abused, whether a child or an adult, sickens us. Child sexual abuse in particular is a twisted act of evil. That is why for decades, Jehovah's Witnesses have gone to great lengths to educate and to warn parents through our publications, meetings, and website about how to protect their children in a variety of circumstances. We also are quick to support and offer pastoral care to those affected while working to ensure the unrepentant perpetrators are removed from the congregation. Anyone who has been victimized has the full support of the congregation to report the matter to the authorities. Now, I look at this, and if you've been following this and you were a Jehovah's Witness, ex-Jehovah's Witness, we know that this statement is not completely true, and they are stretching it. And we know that this is theocratic warfare. We covered this in some other videos. They're allowed to lie to news journalists. They're allowed to lie to right in court, like Jeffrey Jackson did, saying that he would think it's that they're not the governing body, that God, it would be presumptuous. Remember that part? We covered this in other videos. So now let's look at this. Here's from the Jehovah's Witness lawyers. And remember, Brumley was fined $150,000 for lying in court in Montana. So, and the Jehovah's Witnesses are now using a Catholic lawyer in Pennsylvania, Matt Haverstick. We covered that in some of the last videos. So you can catch up on that on some of these last videos. But here's what they're saying. We are not permitted to comment. Of course they aren't. And it sickens us. Well, of course it does. It's a twisted act of evil, yeah. And that is why for decades Jehovah's Witnesses have gone to legal great lengths to educate, warn parents through publications, meetings, and websites about how to protect their children in a variety of circumstances. I find that is an untrue statement. I find that that they've taken this is what they would like to be, this is how they would like to look to the world, but this is not true. So for decades, Jehovah's Witnesses have went to great lengths to hide and cover up pedophilia. So if it comes up in the congregation, well, let's protect Jehovah's name. Let's not report this to the police because it's going to bring reproach upon Jehovah's name. You see, as if God needs them to do this for their name. He doesn't need this, but this is how the organization works. And the elder bodies, and we covered this in some other videos, the governing body, the Watchtower, has instructed congregations to shred records regarding cover up the pedophilia going on in the congregation. So this is all coming out. I find this offensive that they blame it on the parents. So here's what's happening. They're saying that we have gone out and we have educated them for decades and decades of how to protect their children. It's all about their children. It's all your fault as the mom and the dad for protecting your children. There's no culpability, no saying, you know what, we did this wrong. The 2-witness rule didn't work. How can you get 2 witnesses into that situation? None of that is brought forth here. I believe these guys are going to eat their words. They have to, because there's too many of us on the outside that know the truth, that know that this is a lie. And they have articles on sexual abuse, but they have not protected us in the congregation. I know in the congregation I was last in, there was a pedophile. I didn't know about it. He was an elder. I didn't know about it. You see, all of this stuff is coming out. And we are quick to offer pastoral care to those affected. You know, mums and fathers coming to the congregation elders for help, and they're saying, keep it quiet. You know, this is, you don't have 2 witnesses. You know, we can't bring this, you know, the legal department is saying, no, don't take it to the police. So the Watchtower has culpability. The headquarters, they're telling the congregation not to go to the police with this stuff. So I find this offensive. I don't know about you guys, but I find this greatly offensive that the Jehovah's Witness lawyers, the branch at New York, would print this kind of a lie. They're not owning up to anything. They're saying it's all about the parents. It's their fault. It's not our fault. It's about the congregation. We're separate. We're a separate corporation. We just print literature. This is what Brumley was trying to pitch in the Montana courts, and they're still trying to pitch it here. So we're not buying it. I don't believe Michelle Henry will buy this. So critics say that Jehovah's Witness elders have treated child sexual abuse as a sin rather than a crime, documenting complaints in internal files but not reporting them to authorities. And they say the church often required a second witness to substantiate a complaint, a standard that can be impossible to meet when the perpetrators often isolate their victims. Of course. So this article goes on, and we talk about Martin Hove of York Haven, and he's a former elder who left he left the organization in 2016. I left in 2012. So this is very recent, and now advocates for the survivors of abuse in the church, applauded investigators. So he says, I hope elders are arrested who knew about child abuse and covered it up. And then it happened again, said Haw, who testified to the grand jury about the church's structure and about his own daughter's abuse within a Jehovah's Witness congregation. So you see, folks, Watchtower can't hide this stuff. It's all coming out. And this grand jury is not going to be quick. It's taking its time. And that's a good thing. And they've learned with what happened in Australia and how this all got shuffled under. And even in Australia, they are not apologizing. This is the problem. They are not apologizing. Matt Haverstick, the Catholic Church lawyer, he said they have to apologize. He said himself. So the Catholic Church went and apologized. The Pope apologized. But the governing body and Jehovah's Witness organization structure at the headquarters blames it on the families and the mums and the dads. Isn't that sad? Well, folks, that's all I have for the news today. We're going to go back to the news studio. And, I kind of did that a little bit in advance here. Sorry about that. But yeah, we're back at our news studio, and we're going to keep you up to date on what's happening with this grand jury in Pennsylvania. So like I said before, subscribe if you haven't, and like and share, and help us as a small channel to grow and get this out to the world. Well, thanks again, and until next time, keep living your life with love. Bye for now.